Okay. Oh, very good morning, people. And yeah, Shrutika, good morning. I have posted the first chapter of the NCRT 12th standard book on our group. This leads to the introduction of human geography. Let me tell you that this should be used as the guideline because it would be very um, not surprising. I would say it would be funny that students of FYBA geography actually, Sandeep, good morning. Students of FYBA actually are referring to a book of NCRT which is supposed to be for 12th standard. So use that as a guideline. You have to work on it. Of course, we are going to work on it more. And while we work on it, we are going to explore into the other options as far as human geography is concerned. Yesterday, while we were leaving, I think I don't remember the name. Somebody did post me. I think Sharavasti said that to put up a few note points as far as Jobru's facts of human geography were concerned, uh, and I said that we would be doing it today. In that context, let me start sharing with you this. I hope you are seeing this on your screens. I'll just put it on. I'll pin it. I'll pin it to the screen, and so that you'll have a better view of it. The facts of human geography, and no prizes for guessing who is in the photograph just next to the slide on facts of human geography. It's Jabru, and it was his book that he divided human geography into the study of three groups and six types of essential facts. Yes, we did this yesterday. And this is just for your reference that we would be repeating what we were doing yesterday, that these facts included those connected with the unproductive occupation of the soil. Okay, unproductive occupation of the soil is an important term here. And of course, uh, houses, okay, he says is one, and roads or highways, okay, those and now in this slide you will realize how it tends to be connected to each other, in the sense that houses need roads, and it's these roads from houses which will lead to the conquest of plants and animal worlds all as such. Cultivation of plants we saw yesterday, yes man, what we call as a primary activity today, supposed to be in direct contact with the nature, is actually something which we call as cultivation. Cultivated plants, agriculture as an activity, has evolved out of I would say at least a few thousand years of evolution of civilization. At the same time, domestication of animals, okay, you'll see that domestication was basically done for various purposes. I did mention this earlier also, that domestication was for various reasons. Okay, right from the fact that initially man would have now whether he man domesticated company animals first, or whether he domesticated resource animals first, remains something to be seen. Okay, given the closeness that man has with dogs, particularly, it could possibly be that dogs could have been domesticated. Of course, not in the present variety as now, but they could have been, and they in fact would have been helpful as far as hunting is concerned, and eventually domesticating some of these very animals that man hunted for breeding purpose, for consumption purpose. Say, for example, cattle is one. Okay, then of course poultry is another one. Okay, now this obviously is going to be for products. Okay, in the sense, let us say milk in the first case, and eggs and meat in both cases in the second case. Okay. However, there could have been others. Say, for example, we've just said that dogs were a company, at the same time they were a help, as far as human beings then were concerned. They provided a feeling of safety, you would say. uh, they themselves drew a feeling of safety being with human beings, and then of course, as a mutual exchange, they did pass on this feeling to human beings as such. And the characteristic that we spoke about yesterday, that dogs tend to generally uh, they identify their territory, and anybody who tries to intrude in that territory tends to be of course, the dog is going to bark on these such individuals or organisms as such. Okay. Then he also speaks about the destructive economy, which he identifies as a robber economy, because he says that human beings are robbing away the resources from Mother Earth, and that's why he calls it as a robber economy. He also refers to it as plunder. Okay, this would possibly be uh, a connotation which came out of the colonial history. Remember, this was 1952 that Jobro was writing all these things. So, a fallout of colonialism, plunder economy, okay, extracting of resources from the earth at a faster rate than which it could be replenished back by the natural systems. Um, and he identifies that this violent attack on nature may result in poverty. Now, what poverty he speaks about, whether he speaks about resource poverty or whether he speaks about economic poverty, is not clear. Then, besides the above stated essential facts, human geography is also concerned with the study of the following necessities. And yes, we are going to do that part as well. That geography of the first vital necessities. Okay, what are these first vital necessities? Fundamental or physiological needs: food, shelter, and clothing. That's roti. Here it happens makan and kapda. In the Indian context, it's the more popular phrase roti, kapda, and makan as such. Okay, now while we call them as fundamental physiological needs as such, you'll see that of this, food, I would say, is a biological need, because without food, okay, or I would rather say all animals will survive only on uh, food. So it's one aspect of the biologicals, the requirements as such. As far as shelter and clothing is concerned, if we peek into the history of human development of human civilization, possibly he was looking for shelter after food. So this could be numbered as the second important aspect. Okay, and I would say that while food, now we'll have to look into um the sections, okay, as to how the priority moves. And in fact, that is what a student at undergraduate level needs to understand further, over and above what we have done in your 11th and 12th, if you have had a subject in geography. If not, of course, this is all going to be new, and I would be regularly posting these chapters. In fact, I don't know how many of you all know, I have actually posted the link of these NCRT books into the group, and you could have an access to that. In spite of that, now what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to plan is, at the start of every chapter, I would post the chapter related to that particular topic in our syllabus onto our group as well. Now, coming back to the fact that food, shelter, and clothing. um, it's again interesting to note how in Hindi it becomes roti, kapda, and makan, whether it is a rhyming that we would be using, or whether it's the mentality, okay, the dynamic phase of human brain which keeps on changing. Okay, because you see that food is which all organisms would need. Shelter, yes, all need, but not all are extremely dependent on shelter as human beings are, or a few other animals are as well. Because you'll see that some of these animals, birds particularly, will require a shelter. They would have we as human beings, we could look at their shelters in two stages. In the sense, shelter required for habitation, for reproduction. Okay, the nests that the birds built, it's only while they are supposed to be laying eggs. Okay, you'll see that otherwise it's not like a human being that he constructs a house and he continues to stay in that particular house day in and day out. Okay, so many of these animals are seen to seek shelter for the purpose of reproduction and, of course, I would say nurturing of their young generation. While shelter in the human sense is again going to be different. Okay, you'll see that it's basically a protection from the harshness of the climate. One, secondly, harshness of other fierce animals also. Okay, so shelter in the human sense would be different, and clothing, of course, is something which is exclusive as far as the human species is concerned. This, I would say, would be an aspect of social development. This aspect over the period could be uh, civilization. Okay, one, the first step towards civilization would have been, or the first step that man took to place himself away from rest of the animals was the phase of clothing, because you would hardly come across any other animal who would have clothing. Now, if you have to stretch our imaginations, we would say that shelled animals, animals who carry their shells, would be one. You could classify that shell as their shelter. You could classify their that shell as their clothing also. As I said, human geography and understanding of dynamics in the world around us through the scope of human geography is so very dynamic that every individual could be thinking about it in an absolutely varied way. Okay, as far as he she is able to justify it. Okay, in fact, when we speak about when we are going to come to these various definitions that we have as far as human geography is concerned, while I was labeling these definitions, I thought that, my God, how many definitions are there? And in fact, then the fact dawned to me that, say, even you or me would could come up with a definition for of human geography, because it's that part of geography which you perceive how human beings, how we are supposed to be studying geography. As you'll see that Jobru saw, and in fact, when he wrote his book, he identifies the flaws that human beings as a civilization have inflicted upon, say the geography around them as a part of human geography. Okay, but you'll see that when we come to others, as such, they are not so critical about the study of human geography and wanting to study human geography in more of a critical way. They, in fact, the one to follow, Huntington, is going to be more comprehensive, is going to be more elaborative about trying to understand the scope of human geography. Okay, unlike Jabru, who we see he is very critical about say the numbers and the way in which human beings are actually occupying land surfaces, and of course they are on their way to the conquesting plants and the animal worlds also. So these are a few things that we need to understand with regards to Jabru, and then you'll see that when he looks at human beings, the principle of activity, he says, according to Jabru, he says that the physical and cultural phenomena are in a state of perpetual change. This is an important. I said that there is, okay, in fact, when we started with it, again, you remember, I think this is the third time that I'm referring to the fact that any action that you freeze in the frame of time, and you ask people to say interpret that particular frozen frame of action, you'll see that people would interpret that in a different way. And that's why you'll see that Jabru also says that he is of a similar opinion that all states, physical as well as cultural, we have already seen that physical, may it be geomorphology, may it be climatology, may it be oceanography, there is a continuous dynamism in it, and so is as far as cultural phenomena also, that there is a perpetual change. And you'll see that that is this continuous dynamism, this change brings in what needs to be studied in the form of temporal changes. Temporal, okay? What happened yesterday, what happened day before yesterday, what was the condition day before yesterday, today, tomorrow. I was watching this interview of the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on NDTV yesterday, and he was of this particular mindset, the temporal change as such. Okay, you'll see that the interviewer kept on asking him as to, as a politician, as an administrator, how are you going to look into this pandemic conditions? He said that, see, yesterday's condition was different, today's condition is different, tomorrow's condition is could possibly be different. It could go the positive way, it could go the negative way. We have to wait and see which way it goes. We take a temporal stock of things, what may happen. Let's look into what has happened in past. Let us learn lessons from what has happened in the past, and let us take appropriate actions. He was not committal, and at times of uncertainty like we are presently, you'll see that anything where say any statement which tends to get very committal could be severely criticized, basically because okay, the dynamism that we are referring to as far as this particular slide is concerned could again be compared with the dynamism that this very pandemic and the the strain of the virus is showing. Okay, the strain of the virus we had last year has mutated into varied strains, and they are called by different names. The more famous one that we know is the UK strain, as they call it, and it's the rule of nature, isn't it? Dynamism. Okay, so just like in nature, you see it happening around us also. Okay, and in that context, you'll see that Jean says he is an opinion of everything is either growing or diminishing, expanding or shrinking. Okay, nothing is stable or static. Okay, nothing is stable or static. Everything is either growing or diminishing. Okay, growing, I would say, in physical geography terms, I would say it is depositional features, I would rather say. Okay, they tend to grade, and you could say that's because of that. Diminishing, I would say, erosion. Okay, the height of select mountains when they are being eroded. On the human part of it, population tends to be growing, I would say. Resources, on the other hand, which are uh, required as far as this growing population is concerned, they tend to be diminishing day by day, basically because of the fact that the rate of exploitation of these resources. Yes, I am using words used by Jabru. I would not say extraction or mining and other things. Yes, the speed at which they are getting exploited, okay, they definitely are going to be diminished. Then he says that they're either expanding or shrinking. Okay, whatever you have to say. Okay, is there? What he means is there's an say a continuous change. There is a dynamism. Okay, and that's the principle of activity. He says. Okay, for example, height of mountain peaks, sea levels, ice sheets, glaciers, sizes of valleys, delta, volcanoes, and forests are continuously changing their shape, size, okay, as such. So that's the principle of activity for us. And then we come to principle of interaction. Okay, you'll see that every activity, the principle of activity that we saw earlier, is based on the principle of interaction. What is this idea of principle of interaction? Okay, it's basically an idea which is borrowed by Jabru from his I would say he was a follower of Vidal de Lablas, or you can pronounce it as Blash, who advocated the principle of terrestrial whole. Okay, what exactly does this mean? Rouge, the spelling mistake here, assumed that geographical phenomena, okay, it could be physical, it could be social, are closely interrelated with each other. And that's what we have been continuously learning right from the first lecture in geography, that there are continuous actions and interactions between the natural part of the world and, of course, the human part of the world. Humans get influenced by the natural phenomena, and, of course, human beings do tend to influence the natural phenomena, and thus they must be studied in all numerous combinations or with permutations and combinations as such. Okay, If this happens, what happens? If this does not happen, what happens? If it rains, what would be the output? If it does not rain, what would be the output? If it rains very heavily, what should be the uh, resultant human aspect? On the other hand, if it does not rain at all for several stretches of time, what would be happening? Okay, so that's something this related to interactions. Okay, and you'll see that with variations in interactions, you'll see that the combinations and the permutations are also going to change as such. The idea of terrestrial whole or the terrestrial unity was a fundamental concept which later on inspired what we are going to learn very soon as regional synthesis, as it is called, regional synthesis. What is regional synthesis? Of course, some people would call it as a jargon. Okay, it's nothing but interaction, and through this interaction, the permutations and combinations. But when you're going to bind it by a particular phenomena, say when we say monsoon region, equatorial region, okay, here we are going to bind it by a natural boundary, a climatic boundary as such. When we say India, when we say China, we are binding ourselves by a political boundary as such. So that's a region. Okay? In fact, on a larger scale, you would say tropical region, okay, temperate region, polar region as such. Okay, so in the regional context, how does and in fact you'll see that nature also tends to advocate regionalism, of course, regionalism in the natural sense of it, which is so very evident from the fact that you have so many types of climatic patterns on the surface of this globe. Okay, so uh, geography of utilization of the earth resources as such. Okay, economic and social geography is basically production, transportation, and exchange of goods and services, and geography of culture as well. What is political geography and geography of history? A very funny thing to refer, but then geography of history: frontiers, territories, roots, group states, and etc. And human geography has become just a moment. Human geography has become not only more interactive and interdisciplinary in nature, but has also incorporated several new approaches into its fold. It gives to the other social sciences the necessary spatial and a systematic viewpoint that they would otherwise lack as such. Okay, so spatial, okay, going by understanding systems by space. Region is basically a spatial thing, and season is something which is temporal. Okay, and it is through these spaces that you are going to have different systems, various river systems. You're going to have perennial river systems, you're going to have seasonal river systems, and you could have temporary or ephemeral river systems. Okay, ephemerals are streams, rather they are not river systems. So that is basically the contribution that human geography has intervened into other disciplines and subjects as well. Uh, we come to Huntington, and what he speaks about essential facts or elements of human geography in a different way. Yes, we are going to go into a diagram which he has, which I've borrowed from the NCRT textbook. Okay, but then obviously the photograph is from what's his first name? Ellsworth Huntington, and Ellsworth sorry, L Sworth, Ellsworth Huntington. He, as I said earlier, also that in comparison to Jobru, Ellsworth Huntington is not that critical about the systems and human geography and what humans have done to the earth around them. He is, in fact, more interested in linking things together and trying to build up a network of all the things together. And that's why he is referred to as a person who looked at human geography in a very comprehensive way. Okay, he had a very comprehensive approach. Okay, you'll see that he speaks about physical or natural conditions. We're going to do these again as such. Okay, the earth as a globe, and then the landforms, and of course landforms in comparison to the water bodies, and on the land you have soils and minerals, and of course the effect climate is going to have with these aspects. Okay, so this is the physical or natural conditions, and of the long list of cultural or human conditions, he speaks about food, cloth, and culture, equipments, means of transport, hunting, fishing, agriculture, mining, construction. All of these you'll see are human activities. I call them as human basically because with an exception of food, you'll see that these are things which other animals will not normally perform. Okay, and in fact, at this level particularly, you'll see, or I would say from this level, okay, construction, trade, health, and an advanced level of religion, education. Okay, you'll see that we have developed our own religions. Okay, we educate ourselves. Okay, then of course we have our sections of literature, science, governments. We have of our own, and of course, it some animals show this discipline. We may not be calling it as government as such, but then you'll see that they do show disciplines in the sense that you see that ants are seen to be disciplined when they move from one place to the other. Okay, now it could be a chemical interaction, but that is how it is all about. And then you have entertainment uh, is again something which human beings perform. Now we see various clips of various animals on Facebook and other Insta, etc. But whether animals view at that as entertainment, like you'll see a dog enjoying television, etc. Now, whether that would be entertainment to the dog is something the dog would be able to answer. As human beings, yes, we can classify things into compartments: entertainment, government, science, literature, and we have actually certified that. Okay, for if other animals do it or not, that animal would be in the right position to certify it, isn't it? Human beings would not be speaking, say, in lieu for a dog or a horse or a camel, and otherwise also. Okay, then uh, coming to the more elaborate study of human geography that was done by Huntington, okay, the elements of human geography, as he divides it into three sections. Okay, you'll see that this is the first section, this is the second section, and this is what we are going to do in detail, but we will reach that section only when we have understood the earlier two sections, okay, which are, I would say, somewhere related to job rule, basically, because, yeah, Huntington gives his classification in 1959. Yeah, 1959. By the way, Huntington obviously was an American. Job will, without any doubt, be what? He's going to be French. Okay, so coming back to the elements of human geography, okay, you'll see that the most comprehensive observers, geographers, who observe human geography on a very large scale, okay, would start with the interactions and the influences that human beings are faced with regards natural environments. And thus you'll see that they speak about physical conditions, which includes the earth as a globe, and then on the earth you're going to have these landforms and water bodies, the first division of the globe as such. Okay, then within that you're going to have soil and minerals, and you'll see that it is the climate aspect which is going to affect and impact all these aspects, in the sense landforms and water bodies on a very large scale. I would say uh, global warming, or say global cooling or ice age, okay, would lead to uh, a larger spatial expanse of landforms and water bodies respectively, in the sense that if you are going to have global warming, then water bodies will be increasing and landforms would be shrinking. On the other hand, if you're going to have ice age, then you're going to have larger amount of lands and lesser amounts of water bodies relatively, which was again indicated at with those clips that we were watching when we were introducing ourselves to the basics of human geography. Okay, now say the fourth sphere. Okay, like we spoke about water bodies as the hydrosphere, we spoke about the landforms as lithosphere, and of course climate as atmosphere. Okay, I would say this forms the biosphere. Okay, that's the biosphere, and the biosphere is further divided into forms of life, plants and animals. And in this whole scenario, then comes man, and we need to look at these human responses that man has evolved. You will see that from this point to this point, okay, you'll see that man has evolved, and that's why human geography is exclusive. As and when with needs, you'll see that as human as one need has been satisfied, man has moved to other means as such. Okay, and you'll see that human responses to the globe, human responses to various forms of life, you may call it in the largest sense here, or you could refer to it with Job Rue calling it as a robber economy and exploitative activity as such. Okay, on a comprehensive scale, on a very broad scale, you'll see that human responses can be divided into material needs, fundamental occupations, efficiency, and higher needs as such. Now, how do we understand these? Okay, each of these have their examples in this list of 21 activities that human beings perform. Okay, you see that a basic thing that human beings with all other animals would require is material and food and drink, and that's going to be a material need as such. Then with development of time, clothing and shelter is going to be something which he is going to be requiring over the period of time. Say, for example, to generate his own clothing, to construct his own shelter, sorry, he would be requiring tools, and he invents various means of tools, which could be on the border of material needs and fundamental occupations as such. Basically, because with the help of tools, he is going to generate shelter, other things, and of course, he is going to generate means of transportation. Means of transportation eventually happens to evolve as one of the fundamental occupations that a man is going to evolve into. And from human porterage to the fastest means of transport that you have today, all of this will be understood under uh, this genre. Okay, that's uh, the transportation. Okay, but then activities, okay, which we are going to study at a later point of time. I would say this group of activities from number 6 to number 11. Okay, one thing that you will find common with all these activities is the fact that they are directly related to the nature. And that's why, because they are directly related to the nature, you're going to call them as primary activities. A significant population of the world, if you remember those documentaries that we saw last semester, okay, you will recollect that a significant percentage of the population in the world is still, even today, 21st century, you'll see that it's involved in primary activities. It's only the phase that may have changed, but then it's primary activities as such. Okay, you'll see that the hunting that was there 100 years ago is to some extent banned today in many places. Then um, that is the dynamism that hunting as an activity has received. Okay, and in fact, you'll see that in the larger perspective, again, just since we are speaking about the largest perspective, you'll see that there was a time wherein hunting was a requirement of human beings who were nomads then, and they lived in areas wherein you did not have agriculture, or agriculture may not have been evolved as a major occupation then. By the way, they have not written agriculture, farming. Yes, farming is there. So the need for hunting, okay, was basically for the purpose of food. Okay, but then when a stage came in as far as human development is concerned, that we had ample amount of agriculture being practiced, you'll see that hunting gradually shifted to something that was style, something that was status symbol, and you'll see that the 16th, 17th, 18th century as well, okay, which coincides with the age of explorations, I would say, and as the Europeans traveled to new lands, North America, central and southern parts of Africa, South America, Australia, and I would say the forests, equatorial forests of different parts of the world. Okay, hunting initially a requirement to be safe, and then of course as a game, I would say, as a pleasure, I would say. Even today, you'll see that when we go into various places of historical importance, say for example, you go to Hyderabad, within Maharashtra, you go to Kolhapur, and you go to the Palace of the King. There, you'll see that uh, through the halls, you'll see those stuffed say heads of various wild animals which are hanging down the uh, say the walls of these palaces. Okay, any palace, you go to Rajasthan, you go to other palaces, Madhya Pradesh, and you go to Punjab. Okay, you'll see that that's something which has been very common, and this is something which probably has been a very deep practice, okay, of mankind. In fact, you'll see that even before the Britishers arrived, you have paintings and photographs of kings going for hunting, because that was that from a source of food. Just see, from a source of food, hunting had become something that you could display uh, the strength, and that the type of animal that you hunted down gave you more acceptance in your subjects. Okay, that's the king I'm referring to, and it indicated a lot of valor, and brought in a lot of accolades for a particular individual. Okay, so there comes in a phase wherein we are hunting for as a status symbol, as a social symbol, and presently you'll see in the present scenario, hunting has been banned in many of the countries, onshore, offshore. However, it still carries in an illegal way. So from a requirement, you'll see that poaching is another name for illegal hunting. It's called as poaching as such, for various products. Also, that's another dimension, you would say, we have acquired as far as the human response is concerned. Okay, initially hunting was for the purpose of food, but then again the other day we saw about it in the documentary, that when these people from the higher latitudes met the people from the lower latitudes, they wove the various parts of these animals into wonderful ornaments which human beings started donning on them. It could be in the form of a headgear, or it could be a necklace, or it could be a wristband, whatever it is. Okay, so hunting, okay, it's not the only sense. When we are speaking about hunting in human geography, and every aspect, mind you, every aspect, when you are looking at that aspect, it should not be going only by the definition of that particular activity. We need to see into it how it has changed, how the status of that particular activity has changed over the period of time. That's the temporal aspect. And in fact, you could look at it into the spatial aspect also. Hunting in Africa, hunting in Asia, hunting in Europe, hunting in the Americas. Okay, it could be different as well. So there is a special difference in that activity also. Possibly the speed of hunting, I would say, increased during the colonial period, basically because I believe that the weapon that the Europeans brought into the tropical jungles, and that's the gun. Okay, you see that uh, for a significant period of time before the Industrial Revolution and the Europeans brought in the weapons as such, most of it was on indigenous weapons like spears and swords. which were used to and which depicted the real sense of bravery, valor, and I would say strength as far as human inhabitants of those respective times were concerned. But you'll see that a gun uh, changed the whole dimension of major activities, because you'll see that you did not have to be strong, you did not have to be powerful, you did not have to be tall for hunting down the largest of the animals. You could just aim that weapon at an organism and you could shoot it down. Okay, so I would say gun is the advent of the gun, the innovation, the invention of the gun is something which could have changed. Again, we don't know basically because looking at it, even a sphere could have changed it significantly. Uh, the change I'm referring to is the distance between the hunter and the hunted as such. Okay? In fact, the bow and arrow also could have been the distance between the hunter and the hunted as such. Okay, so from physical say interactions with the between the hunter and the hunted to use of swords and knives, okay, then use of protective gear, the form of helmets and all those shields, etc., to use of bows wherein you could shoot down a particular animal from a distance, to spheres, and then of course the complete change of all, that's the advent of the gun. Okay, I could go on and on as far as hunting as a process is concerned, but we have other points to be addressed too, and I'll take a couple of them and then we'll stop for the day. Fishing is again the way I have explained the phases of change as far as hunting is concerned is again something that you can do with fishing also. Of course, fishing small fish, fishing large fish, fishing for an subsistence level, fishing for a commercial level, okay, fishing for food, fishing for byproducts is something we can go on and on. And of course, that's obviously the temporal change as far as fishing is concerned, and the spatial change of fishing, and that goes for hunting too, is that the density of the game available, in the sense when we speak about fishing, normally the chapter on fishing has a unit on fishing grounds, major fishing grounds in the world, fishing industries, development of them, and you'll see that the coast of Europe and the eastern coast of North America, where you see the confluence of the warm and the cold currents, okay, gives you a huge amount of fish stock. Most of the fish stock is found in the temperate regions, borders of the temperate regions, and exclusive fish stock in the tropical regions is that the one just off the coast of Peru. Okay, and so that's about fishing. And while we speak about fishing, it needs to be emphasized here that a lot of fishing stock. We again saw this in those documentaries also. A lot of fishing stock in different parts of the world stays to be seriously depleted, and in spite of that fact, you'll see that whaling as an activity, that's hunting down of whales, has again started, initiated. I have that clip. I will. It's basically a film. It's banned in major parts of the world, and it's banned obviously in Japan, basically because it has been secretly shot as to how fishing as an activity is operated in Japan. Japan is a country which we otherwise look at as a very uh, ethical, moral country, disciplined country, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to your roji roti, you'll see that every country will play its tricks and gimmicks. You'll see that what has happened in the United Nations recently is last decade or so that Japan has literally bought votes in favor of resuming whaling under the pretext that since the period of the ban that existed for a couple of decades, the population of whales has significantly gone up, and as a consequence, there is no harm in whaling down or killing down a few whales, and that's why you'll see that a resolution was brought up, and partial, I would say, um, the say the ban on whaling has already been partially lifted off. Okay, so that's again the politics of human geography behind the activities as such. I would take the third one. I would mention the next three and then I'll stop. Herding basically cattle rearing, cattle grazing. The quality of and type of animal, it will change from place to place and from time to time. Farming, we're going to go into the details of agriculture and the type of farming that we have. Lumbering, again, two major types of lumbering: tropical lumbering and temperate lumbering. And mining, which is basically the root cause, and of course the I would say the core of manufacturing activities, core of commerce, and so on and so forth. So activities 6 to 11 are basically related to primary activities. We are going to do it as a separate part also. But for the day, we are going to stop. I'll be stopping here so that in case you have any questions for me, you could ask me these questions for the day. Yeah, any observations, any additions to what we have been speaking about? We spoke about how Jean Bru, 1952, speaks about, he critically points out that the problems, and in that process identifies what human geography is. But later, Huntington takes a very comprehensive view of understanding and studying human geography, is what we have done for the day. We're going to continue into it probably, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. I will, you will not have your 7 o'clock lecture. And in fact, I have an examination to be conducted at 8 o'clock. But if it does not exceed very long, if it ends before 9 o'clock, then of course I will conduct your 9:30 lecture. Yes, Rutuja, you had a question. Rutuja Harpale, you have raised your hand. I thought you had a question. Okay, fine. You have put down your hand. Yeah, anyone else
So,
would have? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question on about the physical geography.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So we see that in about means near the equator, the people have skin color, the black skin color.
Melanin, yeah. Mm.
But mean that doesn't matter the temperature about some skin color,
In
because
fact,
we see that in Gulf country they have means the more temperature, but the skin color is white. We see that.
now there are various dimensions, and given the time we have at our disposal, I would not be able to go into all the details as such. But let me tell you that skin color, yes, is associated with uh, the temperatures. Okay, and of course, not only temperature, the humidity part of it also is very important. So high temperatures and humidity will increase what is called as the melanin content in your skin, and that will tone it darker as such. But as you go into colder parts, you'll see that people tend to get fairer and fairer. Possibly the melanin content goes down, and it's basically also related to, so to say, the migration. Okay, you'll see that temperatures are high, but humidity is not there. So possibly along the equator, it's temperature as well as the humidity which brings down the toning of the color of these people. It's not the color, in fact, of the skin only. You'll see the color of the hair, the style, the pattern of the hair also, from curly to straight and wavy. All of these are, and of course, then the height, stature. If you go into anthropology, in fact, FYBSC students have it in their paper too, as to various dimensions of human stature also. In fact, what is called as the cephalic index, it's the ratio between these two bones. If you touch your fingers here, the ratio between these two bones and these two, the length between this and this distance gives you a cephalic index, in the sense that whether you have a narrow face, whether you have a broad face, or whether you have a moderate face as such. By the way, this is not a question on physical geography. It is a question in human geography itself. That how is it, and is it fair to say that temperature and color of human individuals is related? Yes, they are certainly related. Higher the temperatures, darker the color; lower the temperatures, fairer the color as such. Yeah.
It's
Any other question?
Sir, what is lumbering?
Lumbering. You don't know what is lumbering? It's basically cutting of
No,
trees.
sir.
the commercial way of cutting trees. And we're going to do that in detail. Don't worry about that. We'll discuss it tomorrow and
Okay.
probably at a later point of time also. Lumberjacks. Look for these words on the net.